This week on the latest episode of The Big Show, it's not Black, it is Black Music Month, and we'll salute the musical genius of the artist of soul. Plus, In the Heights, Lupin and Loki premiered this week. Charles Kirkland Jr. is here. Wilson Morales may join us to discuss these and other issues in the entertainment industry. We'll have all that and more on episode 458 of Keeping It Real with FilmGordon. Let's go. All right, and welcome to the latest episode of Keeping It Real with FilmGordon, the home edition. I am Tim Gordon. I am joined by Charles Kirkland Jr. What's going on, soul brother?
Hey, what's happening? Look, I'm glad to be here. It's been a while, I think, since we've done this. So a lot of things have happened, and I'm just happy to be here.
Well, it has been a while, man. Last week, of course, we did not do the show. I went up for, I don't want to say what year high school reunion it was, but if you look at the gray on my cheek or on my chin, it wasn't last year. I'll tell you that much. It was wild.
Let me just tell everybody the truth. The truth of the matter is that when Tim Gordon gets to his hometown, home state of New Jersey, he becomes a totally different person than who he is that you see right now. All I know is I was on a phone call with him while he's driving the streets of New Jersey.
You were on that call, huh? Wow.
This brother is calling out names I haven't heard in a long time coming out this guy's. Oh, boy, New Jersey just doesn't do it for him. That's why we couldn't have a show last week.
Pretty much, man. What I will say is that I was a victim of my environment. You know, as soon as I got back in that environment, I made a mistake. Somebody called me on a mistake. Instead of saying my bad and keep on moving, I decided to be a Jerseyan and push back. So that's what Charles heard. So that's the nice version of it.
Every time you get out, they pull you back in.
Pretty much, man. I mean, but the class reunion and the weekend spent up in New Jersey was a lot of fun. Got a chance to get with some friends and family. So, but I'm happy to be back here, man. I mean, for another show. We still are in what I call a very interesting sort of reality as it relates to the motion picture industry and the industry that we cover. Movie theaters are open and films are back in theaters, but you still don't have a 100% vaccinated population. So I've been to a couple of screenings, and there are probably less than 30 people in each of these screenings. So it feels like we're trying to get there, Charles, but it's going to be a minute, man, before people are comfortable, including the producer of our show who refuses to go to a movie with me. Whether it's a screening or in general. So, but yeah, man. So how are you finding, this kind of transition that we're making? The studios have sort of changed, because back in the day, we used to have an open door policy with critics going to the movies. And now it's a smaller kind of, we're trying to ease people back in.
To be honest, I feel like I'm an outsider again, whereas I can't get into all these films. I mean, you told me that you saw a few movies, including Fast 9, and I wasn't able to, or I don't know if you went to see it or not. But either way, I didn't get an invitation, and it kind of sucks a little bit. But I'm waiting for us to get back to normal. I mean, I've been talking about wanting to see Fast 9 for a minute. So I guess I'm gonna be first in line in the theater to go see it. So, but like I said, all things in time, it's coming. It's coming back.
Well, it is coming back, man. So normally we would have Wilson Morales, who would give us, at the top of the show, he would come in and tell us what's going on in entertainment. The other thing that's been interesting is that these junkets now, since everything is being done virtually, a lot of these things have been now moved to the weekend, which they always were, but now it's just for you at home who really don't understand what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to say is that over the last, I would say 15, 16 months, the apple cart has really been turned upside down. And while we keep trying to write it, there's some things that are definitely different about the experience of how you cover films, how you talk about films, who gets to see films. All that stuff is just different right now. So just read between the lines and understand that it's an adjustment for us all. We're all trying to figure it out. I think in some aspects, when we shut everything down in March of 2020, you had the adjustment of trying to figure out how to do everything at home. And now the adjustment is about everybody's been home for a year. How do we ease back out in those, get back out in those streets again in order to do what we do? So Wilson, I think, is going to try to pop through after he gets done with his junket, but we will carry on and do what we do. Charles, we're now in almost like the second week of June, almost maybe third week, I don't know. In the Heights, which we're going to talk a little bit about a little later on in the show, is out. One of the best movies of the year. I'll just say that. Loki is streaming now on Disney Plus. Netflix yesterday released, and please, I may be mispronouncing this because the producer's sitting there. Lupin.
Man, good job. Yeah.
Yes. So all of these are things that we will talk about. It's also Black Music Month, man. And I remember several years ago, I undertook a project, and I did it once, and I said, I'm never doing it again, where every day during Black Music Month, I not only found like an artist a day, but sometimes I was doing 3 or 4 artists a day, because there's so many different artists that are out there that needed to be spotlighted. And I wanted to probably, today just pick one, because as vast as my knowledge is with film, my knowledge with music is vast too. So, there's several areas that I excelled in as a young person. And despite the fact that I wound up working in radio and never, pursuing, I pursued, when I say working in radio, I guess that is music somewhat as a career. I was never a DJ like I am a film critic. But that's why I was telling Charles, just give me an artist, man. I want to salute somebody today. And I don't know who we should spotlight for Black Music Month, but I want to spotlight somebody. So give me an artist.
I was thinking I was just gonna give you a toss-up this week, because it's kind of off guard and not planned well, and so I was going to give you a slam dunk and just say this guy named Stephen Morris.
That's your slam dunk. Well, that is a slam dunk. That's an alley-oop. So Stephen Morris, born 1950. Again, my no notes. That's why I told Charles to just give it to me straight. Signed with Motown, and again, I could probably look this up, but I know he had a hit song at Motown when he was 11 years old when he did Fingertips. For those out there that don't know, Fingertips was something that Stevie Wonder created almost on the spot. He came out there and between acts and kind of performed it, and for the first time, and they actually were recording. And that's the version that you hear when you hear the people in the background. It's somebody say, yeah. And you hear the people, yeah. And Stevie grabs the harmonica. That was all kind of on the spot. The other big thing to know about Stevie Wonder is that there's several cool facts I love about him. That, he was kind of looked at initially as the young Ray Charles. And he even met Ray Charles, and they actually did an album with little Stevie Wonder and Ray Charles when he was young. I don't know how old he was, but when he was a teenager. He was 13, thank you. He wanted his independent control. He had written songs like My Cherie Amour when he was 18 and 19 years old. When he got to 21, he finally got his independence. And once he got his independence, man, Stevie Wonder went on a run that to this day is unprecedented, right? Only the Beatles, and I say that one more time, only the Beatles over a 10-year span can match Stevie Wonder classic album for classic album. And Stevie Wonder, with his obvious handicap, with his loss of sight, was able to write arrange, and produce 6 albums in a 10-year span, starting with Talking Book, Music in My Mind, Inner Visions, Fulfilling First Finale.
Fulfilling this first finale.
Fulfilling this, thank you. I always butcher that title. So thank you, Charles, for being here for that. He took a break for a year after winning 3 straight albums of the year, took a break, came back with 2 straight albums of the year, took a break in 75, came back in 76 with the double album, because if you didn't get anything in 75, I'm gonna give you 75 and 76. Song in the Key of Life, which is probably like, for a double album, his best album. And then after a disappointing journey in the Secret Life of Plants in 1979, Wonder comes back in 80 with his last classic album from that period, which of course was Hotter Than July. Stevie Wonder, man, absolutely amazing artist. #1 on my list, which is why Charles just teased and talking about, yeah, man, I'm gonna give you a slam dunk. That's an alley-oop. Before I go, let me just say this, because I get into this argument with all the time. Stevie Wonder's greatest album, his single album, is Inner Visions from 1973. Stevie Wonder's greatest double album is Songs in the Key of Life. There's a distinct difference. Songs in the Key of Life is a double album set. It's a great album, and it's probably the best thing that he's ever done. But single album, Inner Visions, what are you talking about? Golden Lady, Too High, Living for the City. Come on, man. Stevie Wonder, bruh. Absolutely amazing artist. Now, I think living over in Ghana. I've seen him in concert one time, and it was 1989 in N Square Circle tour, where Stevie Wonder performed, wait for it, 4.5 hours nonstop without a break. He performed so much music that night, he ran out of stuff to play, and people would scream out songs, and he'd be like, oh, Ribbon in the Sky? For so long. I was like, oh my God. Stevie Wonder's a guy. He's a music guy. Huh?
And you saw that concert?
At the Cap Center, the old Capitol Center, which is now torn down, which is the Capitol, whatever they call it now, in Landover, Maryland.
No, that's where they put the hospital. The hospital is on the old grounds of Capitol Center.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, they just put ground on they opened up the hospital today.
Wow. 1989, I was in the building for that concert. So Stevie Wonder, bruh. Didn't need to see him. I never tried to see him again. I was like, why ruin perfection? 4.5 hours, first time, nonstop.
4.5 hours. What do you need to see him again for? You saw everything.
Pretty much.
You heard everything.
The only thing Stevie Wonder put out that wasn't in that show that night is because this movie didn't come out until several years later, is when he did the score for Jungle Fever. And I never got to hear him sing, Be Sure You're Sure, or all of the stuff off that album. But Stevie Wonder, man, amazing artist.
The Woman in Red soundtrack came out after that too, right?
No, The Woman in Red was 1984. See, again, you're talking about my favorite artist, man. You ask me any question, Part-Time Lover, 1985. Don't try that at home. That's a Tim Gordon move. So we salute young Stevlin Morris, AKA Stevie Wonder, who is on the top of the food chain, or at least on my list. I have Stevie Wonder #1, Bob Marley #2, and Prince sitting at #3. And I stopped counting after that. I don't have a 4 or 5. Just ask me my top 3. Those are the artists who are the soundtracks of my life. Those 3 guys right there. So we salute Stevie Wonder. Thank you, Charles, for the slam dunk, or should I say the alley-oop that I was just able to go. So, all right, man. So, okay. So it's been a busy week as we transition in projects that have come out in theaters. And, I could say what I call the best thing this week for last. And actually, we should. All right, let's save that for last. And let's kick off the first part of our conversation today with Disney Plus. I don't know what to say about the geniuses over at Marvel, of how they see these shows, they structure these shows, they think about the tone of these shows. Early this year, Disney Plus launched, I think in early February, with WandaVision, where we had, I want to say it was either 8 or 9 episodes of Wanda, who, suffering from, suffering the after effects of losing her love Vision in that universe at the end of Endgame, or actually at the end of Infinity War. She lost him. He doesn't come back for Endgame, right?
No.
Okay, cool. So the after effects of losing Vision in Infinity War, she has now moved to a town in New Jersey, and with her mental abilities has taken over an entire town. And the tone of that, which I thought was really interesting, because I remember you and I had a conversation when we saw the first couple of episodes, and I was like, man, I just don't get it. I don't understand what I'm watching. And I think to Disney's credit, they knew we wouldn't get it, so they sent you. Matter of fact, it was the first 3 episodes. They let critics preview, and I think around the middle of the 3rd episode, I was like, "Oh, I see what you're trying to do." Because they were starting off, it was looking like a television show. It was like I saw a little of Dick Van Dyke. I was looking at some Brady Bunch. They were doing a lot with that show. But again, thinking about what we're about to talk about with Loki, to understand that these shows are not just about these characters, but they're about a tone. And every show has a different tone, which I think is absolutely genius, right? So we go through WandaVision, we have a much more serious and kind of a standardized Disney tone in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which kind of plays on the universe that is somewhere between the actual Captain America and the Winter Soldier and that whole Captain America Civil War. So it kind of takes place in a universe between those two, right? So that one kind of is a show that plays more like a traditional Marvel movie that we're accustomed to. And then this week they dropped Loki. Now, Charles, I'm not sure. Did you get an opportunity? Because they sent out the first 2 episodes of Loki. Did you watch both of them? Yeah, so we won't talk about episode 2, right? But let's talk about what I think is the absolute genius of watching Loki, right? Because what they do, and I'm not doing any spoilers because you've already seen the movie, right? At the end of Endgame, or in the middle parts of Endgame, there's a scene. It was Endgame, because remember initially, I see what you were doing. So in the middle of Endgame, there's a scene where both Captain America and Iron Man are trying to go back in time to get what do you call them from Hank Pym? No, I'm talking about the Pym particle.
The Tesseract. They were trying to get the Tesseract, but they were going back to get the Pym particles.
Pym particles, right? Yeah. So they're going back to get the Pym particles, and they go back to 1970, right? So then we kind of see, as they're playing around manipulating time, there's a scene that happens in the original Avengers with Loki being held captive, and how we see in Endgame how Loki picks up the Tesseract and just disappears. And that whole explanation I just came is the absolute start, is the actual start of Loki. That we started there and Loki disappears, and then it's on after that, where we discover where Loki goes. Loki's apprehended, and he's taken to a place called the Time Variance Agency, the TVA. And boy, No, I'm sorry, the Time Variance Authority. My apologies. Thank you. That's why you're here, Charles, to clean this stuff up when I make a faux pas. He goes to the TVA. And boy, that's a fun place, man. We learn a lot. Now you learn a lot in the first episode, but wait till you see episode 2. Woo, we learn a lot. So again, Charles, I will just say that I loved it. I love the fact that I live in a world that before 2008, the idea of someone saying, hey, Charles, we're going to sit down and take a comic book, and we want to make movies that lift these characters from the pages of these comics onto the big screen. But we're not just going to do that. We want to cover the entirety of our comic catalog, and we're going to create a universe where we will think this out in phases, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, 4, 5, etc. And we will introduce you to these characters. We will stitch them all together. They'll have their individual origin stories. We will bring them together from time to time for them to be, the Earth's mightiest fighting force, which is the Avengers. And then we will break them apart and we'll put them into these teams, like people who are in the comic books kind of understand what they are. If you would have told me that in 2005 or 2006, I'd have been like, it'll never happen, man. A, we can't get the budget for it. B, nobody has that kind of vision. Here we sit 13 years later from Marvel introducing Iron Man back in 2008. We're now in phase 4?
4.
4 of the Marvel universe. And the other genius is that Marvel understood that they're telling these stories, but they still had more. They had different ways, right? They've been using end scenes in these movies, right? Since 2008, where Marvel literally has introduced, I'm not gonna say they've introduced the end scene. They popularized the end scene because people were doing that beforehand. But Marvel now has forced people that watch their films, and you got to sit there through the whole film, all the credits, because you never know what you're gonna miss. You walk out and somebody going, you didn't see? Oh, dang. So the fact that Marvel's doing this, and then they went to television, they were doing stuff like Agent Carter and all these other shows where they were trying to tie these characters. So Marvel, it looked like from day one, was always trying to figure out ways to introduce salient plot points to the audience, like in between the content they were creating, right? So now comes Disney Plus, right? Disney Plus, the genius of this is that once they get this thing rolling, they will be able to literally, they've already planned the films out, right? Like I think we get 8 starting with Black Widow, between Black Widow and the end of 2022. But what they'll be able to do now that we're somewhat, quote unquote, back to normal, is that they will be able to use these films in between, these shows. Loki, What If is coming up. I'm not sure exactly what other shows. I think Hawkeye has a show that's going to launch either later this year or early next year. They'll use these shows as a way to kind of to have more red herrings that are out there. And you go, oh, snap. Well, good. Then go watch the movie. And then, so Charles, it's absolutely genius. So I've said all that about Loki. Give me your I've read the comic book, what I just talked about with Disney Plus, and then kind of give it more of a firmer kind of comic kind of aspect outside of my film aspect.
Okay, so first of all, let's just be reminded that Marvel wasn't really getting all this right, because when you talked about Agent Carter and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and even the stuff that they did on Netflix, that really wasn't working correctly. It's only when they brought it over to Disney Plus and put it on that platform that they got all the wrinkles out, and now everything is seamlessly together, as you stated before. Every piece fits in with another part so that you get something that you need to know to fill in, right? So like you said, when Loki takes that Tesseract in Endgame and disappears, it creates a new timeline. And not spoiling anything because everybody already knew this. The genius part about this is nothing that has happened in the comic books. This is an all new area that they're going into, and they're using this side story to introduce some things that they've already said are happening in future movies that are coming. So there were some things that happened that we're going to see in Doctor Strange that come to full fruition. There's some things that we're going to see come to fruition in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, because they've already told us who the villain is going to be in that one, and we've got an opportunity to see some of the stuff that was. So they're geniuses here is what we're talking about. And so, yes, the episode 2 has some big bombshells, and some of that stuff that comes up in episode 2 did come out of comic books, but this whole story is brand new. This is something that they've created just to tie in from one movie to the next movie. And so everything is so integral now that you have to watch, because if you don't, you're going to miss a plot line, a storyline, a device that is going to be necessary when you get to one of the movies. For now, all this to say, we got Black Widow coming out next month. And everyone is like, okay, well, Black Widow is really dead in the Marvel universe. But with what's happened in Loki, is she dead? Is there a way to bring her back? And because everything plays on one another, you're thinking, okay, so now Black Widow, something's got to happen in Black Widow that's going to be impactful for the rest of the movies. So it's like you said, it's just genius how they put all this together. They got this. Kevin Feige has this direction, this vision that he's carried out through multiple directors, through multiple storylines, through multiple movies, and it all fits together. I mean, it's the highest level of intelligence. This is genius, madman intelligence that he's using to make all this stuff come together, and I appreciate it. I really enjoy it. Loki, I love the fact that when Loki gets to the TVA, he realizes, maybe I'm not as big a guy as I thought I was. It's a little bit of a humbling experience for him.
Or maybe the stuff that I think is important in the TVA really ain't that important at all. And I think that's the reveal in episode 2. He's like, is this really the center of the world, the center of the universe? It might be. So here's a couple of things. I want to salute Tom Hiddleston, who has played this character brilliantly, at least for like the last 10 years, almost 10 years. I think, I'm not sure. Did he showed up first time in Avengers, right? The original Avengers?
No. He showed up in Thor first.
Okay. All right. So it has been 10 years. All right. So I had to think about it because, man, come on, man. We've seen 22 of these movies, man. I'm trying to keep up.
I'd keep track of.
So Owen Wilson.
Which again, I mean, how did they keep track of it all? I mean, it's crazy. They got to have this plot board back in Marvel Studios is 50 feet high to keep.
It's gotta be, man. It's gotta be. I mean, I think my mind was blown, and I'm going to get back to this cast in a second, but my mind was blown when we watched, I want to say it was Endgame, when they got to the Soul Stone, and the guardian of the Soul Stone was Red Skull, who died in Captain America: First Avenger like 9 years earlier, 8 years earlier. I was like, wow, they thought enough to have that character back. So if you missed Captain America: First Avenger, you were like, okay, yes, cool. No, there's a connection to all of this stuff, which is why I said it's like a huge quilt that Marvel has created that they just stitch on the next part of the story, and they're all interconnected. But back to the cast of Loki, Owen Wilson, who plays, his character is listed as Mobius M. Mobius.
M. Mobius, yeah.
He was great. The judge, Ravana Renslayer, played by Gugu Mbatha-Raw. Fresh off of Lovecraft Country is Wunmi Musaku, who plays Hunter B-15, which you'll see a lot of her in the first 2 episodes. Now, they've ruined it for you already because I'm not sure if you looked at the cast online of who's going to be in Loki. You have, so do I say this or do I just leave this hanging?
I would just leave it hanging. I mean, you can say who it is, but don't say who she plays.
Well, I mean, there's 2 other people that are on here that if I say their names, you know who they play in the MCU. Let's just say that Loki will be visited by some characters that you've already seen in other MCU movies. So I'm not going to get in trouble with Disney Plus, but it's right there. I'm looking right at. I'm like, oh, he's in the show too. Wow.
Don't.
No, but I'm saying, which is interesting.
Don't even run the risk of angering the gods at Disney Plus.
well, let me ask you a question. Now that it's over with, there was always the rumor that Benedict Cumberbatch's Doctor Strange would show up in WandaVision, and Kevin Feige said that they had almost written it, but he kind of killed it. And the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, of course, we had the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, but there was no other crossover. I don't think there was another crossover with another. Well, actually, Agent Carter's niece might have been. Sharon Carter was a crossover from films, but they didn't have like an Avenger crossover. It looks like in this one, I'm not gonna say it, man. About this crossover, Billy. I'm gonna follow Charles' lead. I'm not gonna say it. Just keep watching Loki. It's a total of 6 episodes. We've seen 2, so we won't get a fresh Loki episode until the Wednesday after next, which, kind of bites. But, I really like this show a lot.
Know that for sure. They might give us some more. Who knows?
I don't think so, man. Disney, what they've shown us so far is Disney gives you whatever they give you at the beginning, then you got to sit there like everybody else and wait. Which is fair with me. I mean, I don't want to see the whole show. Well, actually, that's not true. I wish I could see the whole show in advance, but that's not the way it works. But I love Loki. I think I keep saying every time they put out a new show, this was my favorite. I like Loki a lot, but I still love Captain America. The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. It is actually Captain America and the Winter Soldier, but the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Captain America. Okay, Falcon and the Winter.
But it's Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Yes, it's Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So that clearly is my favorite. But Loki, after 2 episodes, really like this show a whole lot. All right, Charles. So I'm going to transition from Loki to Lupin. Lupin dropped yesterday on Netflix. Now, I did not watch all of Lupin because I was doing some work on this little thing called the Black Reel Awards for television, which the nominations will be announced next Thursday. I was.
Flag, foul, flag. Lupin has been out since the end of 2020.
Okay, so
you're going to tell me since the end of 2020 to now, you couldn't finish. What is it? 6, 7, 8 episodes of a show? Come on now.
I'm gonna just let you rage into the joy fantastic. So clearly, what you don't know is that season 2 of Lupin dropped yesterday. I watched season 1 of Lupin last year.
Oh, okay.
The
I thought
new season is out
season
now.
1. Oh, I thought you said you hadn't watched season 1. That's what I was going to be upset about. Okay, never mind.
People at home, look at my face. Look,
my bad.
I was just letting you just do all of that. The second season came out yesterday. I was watching some of it, which picks up right where season 1 ended. But in all actuality, from what I heard from our producer who watched it all, she loved it. She said it's superior to season 1. Omar Sy is back in the adventures. If you watch season 1 of the show, you will know that this master thief has his son snatched up from under him in kind of a what's the name of the Steve McQueen movie that they remade with Pierce Brosnan and
Thomas Crown Affair.
In a Thomas Crown Affair type of heist at the end of season 1. So clearly this will be a short conversation because Charles, who is still on season 1, I can't believe you couldn't find a time to watch Lupin, all this. No, bro, I think it's the chance to watch all of season 2. But from what I hear and what I've seen, I just think it's amazing, man, that this show is back. I definitely will check it out all weekend long. Between you and I, Charles, man, we watch so much stuff, man. You watching stuff, I'm watching stuff. There's a new movie that's high profile next week that I've already seen a screening of. I'm sure you have as well. So, we can't talk about that one. So But Lupin, you have not seen yet, so I will just leave it there that I haven't seen all of it, and I was hoping that you had had an opportunity to check out season 2. Clearly, you have not, which now takes us to the last film that we were saving the best for last, In the Heights. Wow.
I can honestly say, I honestly say, the reason I have not watched Lupin is because I've watched In the Heights 3 times.
I'm not mad at you. I saw In the Heights in the theater, and then I watched it a couple of nights ago on Disney Plus. I mean, not Disney Plus, on HBO Max. And I will just say this, and I'll go first because I always save the best for last and let Charles do his thing. The first thing that jumped out at me when I watched In the Heights is the absolute energy of In the Heights, like this, just the spirit of the whole story, how it's told in kind of like, instead of a bedtime story, it's like a bouncy, vibrant daytime story that's being told to a group of kids at on a beachfront, right? The second thing that jumped out at me about this is that this movie reminded me of films like Black Panther, Crazy Rich Asians, The Namesake, and films like that that talk about specific ethnicities and the pride that these ethnicities have, right? I loved watching all these beautiful kind of Latin people reveling in their Latinness, if that's, I mean, it's not even a word, but you kind of know what I'm trying to say. You know, celebrating their culture. I love the fact that there were so many high profile, Latinos or Latinx people. The only one that I didn't see and I was looking for was John Leguizamo. I was like, other than him, I saw Jimmy Smith, Daphne Rubin Vega. I saw so many people in this thing that I love. I love the music. I think Lin-Manuel Miranda, I could actually say this after watching two of his films or two of his stories. He's a writing genius. I mean, the pacing of how he writes lyrics, the pacing on how he structures his stories, that dude is really, really talented. He really is. I mean, if you watched Hamilton and you thought what he did in Hamilton was special, you need to go back and watch In the Heights, which precedes Hamilton. This is really well done. Anthony Ramos in the lead is absolutely fantastic. Corey Hawkins, only African-American in the cast, works well. I mean, Jimmy Smits, who I've been watching for eons, is absolutely great in this. I mean, everything about In the Heights, man, it easily.
Did you know Jimmy Smits could sing? Have we known that before?
Well, I'll put it to you like this. I never forget about 10 or 15 years ago, they came out with Mamma Mia, right? And watching Pierce Brosnan try to sing is still one of those memories where I'm like, get out my head.
I knew you were going there.
You do know, because I was at the screen like, ah. But Jimmy Smith sounded good. I mean, I just love this cast. I love everything about this movie. The song, I've been telling you for as long as anybody that what makes a wonderful musical is that you got to have a songbook, right? So when you talk about a regular movie, you got to have a screenplay. It's screenplay. If you watch a musical and you can't remember any of the songs, or the songs don't do anything for you, it's not going to be a really good musical. You think about stuff like Rent, Chicago, Dreamgirls. I mean, these are all kind of standards that just sort of work because the music in it drives these stories. And In the Heights is another one. You think about somebody like Lin-Manuel Miranda, who took a story about, I'm not going to call Alexander Hamilton insignificant, but I will say that he was somebody, when you think about the founding fathers, you know, you think Washington, you think Jefferson, you think all these other people. Alexander Hamilton might come up because, I mean, he was really important, you know, first Treasury Secretary, et cetera. But the fact that he wrote an entire hit Broadway play around Alexander Hamilton with everything being rap and hip hop, I just thought it was fantastic. It was just the most genius thing I'd ever seen outside of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But now, within the Heights, you can see where that pacing comes from Hamilton, which was the earlier play that also won the Tony, In the Heights. He is a very, very talented individual, and the fact that they were able to adapt that story from 2008 to this film makes me happy for two reasons, Charles. One, I'm happy that we got the Heights, that we can watch it over and over. And then secondly, I can't wait to figure out what they're going to end up doing with Hamilton, the movie. Hamilton, the movie is going to be epic when they make it. And I hope they bring back the original cast in order to do it. So that's my In the Heights love that I gave it. And if you want to see more In the Heights chatter from me, Travis Hobson and I were on WETA's Around Town. So that review is out in the world now. So you can check out how much we just love In the Heights. Charles Kirkland, 3 times you've watched this. Give me your breakdown of In the Heights.
Okay, first of all, like you said, this was before Hamilton. When Lin-Manuel did the part that Anthony Ramos does in the movie on stage. And when he did this play, a lot of the people, I think Ramos was one of the people in the play, but he was he started having this idea for Hamilton, and he could get Hamilton off the ground because of what he did with this film, with this play. If it wasn't for In the Heights, we probably wouldn't have had Hamilton. And for as much as people love Hamilton, and I do as myself, which I don't think they should make a movie of it. I think it's perfect the way that they filmed it off as the Broadway play. In the Heights is fantastic. It gave me the same feeling, and even more so as when I watched Jingle Jangle, just how beautiful and how lively and entertaining and exciting and lovely that the film was. It just warmed you from the inside out. You just got goosebumps watching the film, and I tell you, this is a love letter. And it's just perfect to me how they capture every essence so well. I mean, you talk about the music, and we can talk about West Side Story, which is coming out at the end of the year. This is the musical of the year. This is the musical of the year, if not the movie. We'll see what's coming out later on, but nothing's going to top this. This is just I used genius before, but this is incredible. And like I said, I didn't go to a screener. I didn't go to the theater to see it. I've watched it at home 3 times, and it came out on Wednesday. Today is Saturday. I've watched it 3 times. So I'm going to get in my 4th time today, and then I got other stuff I need to watch to write reviews for. But I will watch In the Heights again today, probably with my family, because it is that incredible of a movie. And it's about family. It's about love. It's beautiful, beautiful.
Well,
A+.
Dasha Polanco, one of the 3 girlfriends that are populating this movie. There's so much talent on the screen here. I'm looking through the cast right now, man. I'm just like, man, In the Heights is a lot of fun, man. It really, you kept hearing me say earlier about the energy of the film, man. It really does an amazing job. And halfway through it, I'd never forget, I was at a screening. I think I was talking to another of our colleagues, Julian Lytle. And I said, so now I understand what people must have been thinking about Black people and the pride they felt watching Wakanda when you watch In the Heights. If you're a Latinx or a Latino or a person of Hispanic heritage, that film, man, just captures it all, man. I mean, and to me, one of the better songs in it is, I like the sequence when, what is the character? I'm trying to look for her. I don't see her. Oh, the woman who plays his Abula Claudia.
Yeah.
when she is transitioning and that whole sequence where she's on the train. And I was like, man, it was so well done, man. I just, like I said, man, I can't tell you in enough syllables or enough adjectives on how much I enjoyed watching In the Heights. And I remember when we did it on Around Town, I said, the subject of West Side Story came up, that, this film to me is what West Side Story should be. Like if you're gonna make West Side Story, you're gonna adapt it as a more contemporary tale. That's the energy that West Side Story should be. And I unfortunately, Charles, I think what's gonna happen later on this year when West Side Story comes out is people will compare it to In the Heights and be like, it was okay. In the Heights was better. So I assume that that's what's going to happen. I could be wrong, but I assume.
I agree. I think that's definitely what's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I love Steven
I think that's definitely what's going to happen. I mean, uh-oh.
No, go ahead. I can hear you.
You there?
Yeah. You said you agreed.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, I love Steven Spielberg. I love Steven Spielberg too, but I mean, when he's remaking a movie from the 50s, and you're going to compete with a movie that's made for now. I mean, how can you compare the two? How can one compete with the other? That's what I want to say. There's no way, unless Steven writes some new songs or does something totally different. There's no way it's going to compete with what they've done with In the Heights. And I'm not saying that it's impossible, but I'm just saying it's all. You got the factor of people remembering the old West Side Story, and then you got this fresh take. How is West Side Story, the remake, going to compare with either one of those? It's just going to be hard. It's going to be hard.
Well, I'll just say this, man. I'm not necessarily. I'm kind of torn on West Side Story because I've seen it so many times. A couple of thoughts, and we've talked about it on this show, that I don't think that it is one of the films to me that hasn't aged well, right? So when I watch West Side Story now, it kind of reminds me of watching Marlon Brando and the Wild Bunch. And I'm trying to think of other films that just seem so dated. But the thing when I say it seems dated, the fact that a movie was made 50 or 60 years ago doesn't mean it's dated, right? Because, I watched The Apartment. The Apartment still works, and that's a film that was made in 1960. I watch A Place in the Sun with Elizabeth Taylor and Montgomery Clift from 1951. That movie still works. You watch The Maltese Falcon from
1946.
No, I think To Have and to Have Not was 46. But I'm just saying, or 47. When you watch some of these movies, the fact that a movie is old doesn't mean it's dated. What means when I say dated, I mean like when I watch West Side Story and you see the Jets and the Sharks and they're sitting out of the park, snapping their fingers, I'm like, nah, bro, that's not really working. Now, the thing that makes West Side Story such an intriguing property, which is why I think Spielberg wanted to make it, is that you had this really young Rita Moreno, you had this really young Natalie Wood, you had this kind of Romeo Juliet thing that was happening with these two families. There's a Place for Us. That's a classic song. I mean, that song alone is the selling point of the movie, man. But the point of it is that, you're making a movie about two gangs in 1961, which is when West Side Story came out, about the 1950s. And that's going to be a hard adaptation, man. I mean, it's a hard adaptation because what can you adapt it to? Unless it was like the Crips and the Bloods, you could have done something. I'm being a little over the top, but I'm being over the top for a purpose to try to explain that you can't tell a story about two gangs or two families or two people or two groups that find themselves in odds without kind of updating the story. You can't really update that story because there's no Officer Krumke in 2021 unless Officer Krumsky is a cop that's beating up people and shooting folks. Like, I mean, you understand what I'm saying? I mean, so
I mean, it's possible if you make it MS-13 and some other things that are happening nowadays to update it. Yes, it's possible.
my point.
It's
But you got to update it to something that's happening today.
But my point is, and similar to yours, West Side Story was dated when it came out. When it came out in 1961, they were talking about a movie that things that happened in the 50s, and so it was already old. When they were having the finger popping gang war, that stuff wasn't happening in the 60s even. So it was dated when it was made. So it was old when when it was created. So it has to be remade freshly. And how more fresh can it be than In the Heights? So that's what I'm saying. It's not going to compare to the people who reminisce about the old movie and have such a love affair to it, and it can't compare with In the Heights unless it's something totally different, something really fresh and recreated, and like we've talked about, making it current. It just can't work, and then who knows.
I was gonna say, well, the thing that I want people at home who keep saying, well, why do they keep comparing In the Heights to West Side Story? The stories aren't the same, right? So their stories aren't equal, but the thing that we're talking about is that we're talking about a musical in a neighborhood, which is what West Side Story is, a musical in the neighborhood, right? So, and in New York, it's that kind of energy. If you think about the grandson of West Side Story would be In the Heights, if you think about it from that standpoint. But now you're going to tell me that you're going to remake Grandpa, and Grandpa is coming out with a brand new film. I'm just like, hey, man, I'm here for it because it's Steven Spielberg, but I'm just not sure how effective, what magic that Steven Spielberg could bring to that. And I've seen a lot of Steven Spielberg movies. He's a hell of a filmmaker. Schindler's List. You think about stuff like The Color Purple. You think about, Raiders and some of the other stuff. I mean, Spielberg is a very talented filmmaker. I just think, man, they said your reach should never extend past your grasp. Is that the correct way to say that? Am I saying it incorrectly?
I think you got it right. But all I can say is maybe Steven Spielberg is talk to James Brown and Papa's got a brand new bag. Who knows? It may work. I mean, he is a master storyteller, so a master filmmaker. So I'm not going to poo-poo it too much because, I mean, we have yet to see what he's going to do. And we have no idea because I don't think anyone has seen anything or heard anything about what this is going to be like. So we are reserved judgment.
Yeah, I was gonna say we are 5-6 months ahead of West Side Story, which comes out later this year, I think, because these schedules are moving so fluidly now. I think it's supposed to be a December release. But let's go back and recap what we talked about today. So, of course, when we started with Loki. I would give Loki a solid B+. I want to see where else they take this from what I've seen so far. And also looking at what's to come, or who's to come, I should say, that I am very excited. It's still my second favorite Disney Plus series after The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. What did you think about Loki, Charles?
I agree. Did you ever go back and watch the end credits for that one scene that I told you to look at?
For Loki?
Yes.
No, but I will check it out as soon as we get off the show. I think I went back and I did see an end credit. Yeah, I did see it.
Okay. All right. So yeah, I think actually I still think that I enjoyed WandaVision a little bit more, but I'm reserving that judgment also to see where Loki is going, because again, after episode 2, which a lot of you haven't seen, it promises to be pretty important, and so I'm waiting to see how it goes.
Important to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, we'll say that much.
Yes.
So on Lupin, we both gave that an incomplete because you didn't see it at all. I didn't see enough to really register a review, despite the fact that people close to me have told me that they think it's absolutely brilliant. So Lupin is on Netflix right now. So as soon as you get off the air here, you can check it out. And also Loki, which we didn't tease, is on Disney Plus. So you can check that out when you get off the air. And finally, In the Heights, which both of us were effusive in our praise. I gave this thing an A. I think it's the best film I've seen this year, and it's probably going to be the best musical of 2021. Infectious energy, amazing writing, great song book, beautiful cast, everything. Beautiful to look at. Beautiful looking movie. I want to live in that New York that the folks, John Chu and Lin-Manuel Miranda, I want to live in that New York, not that depressive, racist New York that Spike Lee or that crazy, neurotic Woody Allen New York. I want to be in the Heights, New York. Great movie. Charles, what did you think about In the Heights?
Well, the problem for you, Tim, is that you can never get past New Jersey. Once you get to Jersey, you don't stop. So yeah, again, I think it's, again, like you said, the musical of the year, hands down. Great cinema. The 2 hours and 20 minutes that go by like lightning. It's just enjoyable.
All right, so there it is for this week. Episode 458 in the books. It's a wrap. We will be back next week for our special Juneteenth episode. I've been struggling with this one because, I'm like, Juneteenth, the day that the slaves found that they were free. So we had to figure out movies that talk about freedom. And yeah, we're going to have something. I don't know what it is. It's going to be something nice. Tune in next week for that.
As long as it's not Braveheart. As long as it's not Braveheart.
Black freedom.
Oh, okay.
Wow. As we tell you guys in closing every week, please see something really good at the movies. Until next week, we'll see you guys on the other side. Charles, it's always a pleasure, brother. You take care and enjoy your weekend, man. Peace, man.